Today, we'll look at another story of resistance in the book of Genesis, and this time it was a successful resistance, at least up to a point. That's the story of Lot. Most of the time when we think of Lot, we don't think of someone who is a good or godly man. After all, isn't Lot the one who volunteered to let his daughters be sent outside to the wicked men of Sodom? Well, yes, he did. And although you can debate whether he actually knew what would happen or not, still, that's a terrible thing to do. Granted. However, Peter says in 2 Peter 2, verse 7, that Lot was a righteous man, a man who is greatly disturbed or vexed by the perversion of the city. Let's read this from Genesis 19. 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and by the way, these are the same 2 angels who had just been with Abraham previously. And Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth. And he said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. And they called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them to us, that we may know them." Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters, who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." And they said, "This fellow came to sojourn, and has become the judge of us. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." Then they pressed hard against the man Lot, and he drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out with their hands, and brought Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both great and small, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of the place. For we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went up and said to his sons-in-law who were to marry his daughters, "Up, get out of the place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city." But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Take up with your wife and your daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. Lot lived in a wicked, wicked place. The men of the city of Sodom practiced perversion. Now there were a couple of angels who came to Lot. Lot did not know that they were angels. Scripture says that he did not know that they were angels. And the angel said, "We'll spend the night in the town square." But Lot, who was in the gate of the city, a symbol of the authority that one had, he said, "No, you will come to my place." Now we know that the men of the city, once they found out about these these angels who they thought were men, they went to Lot's house and said, "Send us those men, because we will know them." In other words, we will practice perversion with them. Now, of course, Lot resisted. He refused. It was a custom in that time. When you show hospitality, hospitality was not merely allowing someone to eat your food or allowing someone to stay with you. Hospitality is a gift of protection. You're promising to protect the ones who come into your home, under your roof. You care for them like you would your own household, because temporarily, at least for the night, the people to whom you're showing hospitality are members of your household. It said all the men of the city, small and great, it didn't matter. They all came. They were all practicing perversion. And when they came to Lot's house and they demanded that he send the men out, Lot refused. Then they became irate with Lot. They said, how can you do this? You came in and you think you're somebody, and so we're going to treat you worse. We're going to beat and everything else more to you than we were to these men. So not only were they perverse, they were also violent. And often the two go together. So they turned on Lot. Now we know, of course, that Lot, his reasoning for choosing Sodom was because originally he saw it was a beautiful land. Remember the story of Abraham, when Abraham told Lot, choose one of these places, and Lot chose the area that is Sodom because of its lush agricultural capability. Well, his soul was disturbed. He was vexed. The perversity of the city was a great disturbance to him. And we see by the way that his sons-in-law and his wife respond that they too had become affected by this perversity. But the angels, when Lot was on the outside and the men of the city were going to come against him, the angels in turn grabbed Lot. They protected him, brought him inside, and then they struck the men of the city with blindness. This is only a blindness that illustrates even further. I mean, it was true blindness, but it also illustrates the spiritual blindness that had encompassed them long before. God eventually delivered Lot, and he delivered his daughters as well. Now Lot would not even leave the house when the angel said to go. He delayed, and so the angels grabbed him and said, you come. But Lot still has something to tell us and teach us about faithful resistance. First of all, resistance means protecting the innocent, protecting those who come into our sphere. And this is through the gift of hospitality. We are called to protect those who are in need, to show them shelter, to welcome them. It doesn't mean you have to let someone just live in your home. That's not necessarily the point, although that has its place certainly. But welcoming those who are refugees from the world. They will probably, some of them will not be at the same level of maturity that you have. But they need a place where they can come and learn what life should look like. So show hospitality. Faithful resistance requires protecting the innocent through hospitality. What if Lot hadn't protected the angels? What if he had chosen instead to walk in his fear? To say, I don't want to upset the men of the city, so I'm just going to let those strangers stay out there. He knew what would happen. You see, Lot was courageous. Lot was willing to risk his life to protect the men that God brought him, those angels. And that courage is needed, and we'll see this many times, and you can even understand it. Courage is needed for resistance. We cannot resist if we are not courageous. And the last lesson for us to see here is that God protects faithful resistors. Those who are loyal to Him, those who strive to protect the innocent, just as with Lot, we see God's deliverance happen time and again. Doesn't mean it will happen every time. We know there are examples of those who, in World War II, who protected Jewish people from Nazi Germany who were taken to concentration camps, like Corrie ten Boom. Her father and her sister died in concentration camps due to their protection of Jews. Yet we know time and time again, God delivers those who resist faithfully. So, learn from Lot. Use hospitality to protect those in need. Be courageous and trust that God will protect you as you faithfully follow Him.